And now we'll proceed to next panel discussion 2, Taiwan-US-Japan Parliamentary Dialogue. Here we have 7 panelists in this session respectively from Japan, United States, and Republic of China, Taiwan. And for the second panel, please welcome our moderator and a panelist to come up to the stage. Here we have moderator, Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, Republic of China, Taiwan, Chairman Hsin-Huang. Also, we have 7 panelists, include Kono Taro-san, Member, House of Representatives, Japan, SUZUKI Keisuke-san, Member, House of Representatives, Japan, Roger Wicker, Senator of United States, Bill HAGERTY, Senator of United States, and also have Andy BARR, Representative of United States, Chih-Cheng, Legislator, Democratic Progressive Party, Legislative Yuan, Republic of China, Taiwan. And also we have He-Chih-Wei, Legislator, Democratic Progressive Party, Legislative Yuan, Republic of China. Welcome all of our moderator and panelists. Please be seated. And now I would like to give floor to our moderator, Chairman Xiao.
Good morning, and welcome to the second session. And the second session, as you can see from the board, will be very crowded and exciting. Promise to be exciting panel, as we will have the Taiwan-Japan-US parliamentarian dialogue. Such dialogue, I think, to me, is actually as a critical triangular dialogue. As long been Taiwan, US, and Japan has long established a security link, even though it's not in formality. But in potentiality and in actuality, it is already a security link already. So as we have to finish by 12:50, as we have a luncheon, and we also have another exciting speech waiting for us. So therefore, I have to skip many polite words. So let's get into it. We have 3 distinguished panelists on site. We have another 4 distinguished panelists online. Let me introduce them according to the calendar, according to the order of the presentation. The first is Representative Taro Kono-san. And he is a member of the House of Representatives from Japan. Due to he was infected, unfortunately, before he was ready to come, infected by COVID-19, so he cannot make it, but he will stay online with us during the session. And the second speaker is on site. Next to me, Mr. Keisuke Suzuki.
Good morning.
Okay.
Keisuke Suzuki, thank you.
Thank you. And he was here for the open parliament, as I can see. At that time, he was online. So this time, very happy to see him inside. Now, the 3 U.S. representatives cannot make it because now it's in the session in the U.S. Congress and the Senator. The first is Senator Roger Wicker, and he has prepared a pre-recorded presentation. The second from U.S. is Senator Bill HAGERTY from Tennessee. Mr. Wicker was from Missouri. The third representative is a Congressman, Andy BARR, and he's a congressman from Kentucky. And we have 2 here from Taiwan. The first is Legislator Chih-Cheng over there. He is academic term politics, and both ways he has done a good job. And second is a legislator. Oh, by the way, Chih-Cheng is from New Taipei City. And the second is the legislator He Zhi-Wei over there, and he's from Taipei, So without further ado, let's get on it, and let's welcome first. Welcome Kono-san. You have how many minutes? 5 minutes, I think. Yeah, 5 minutes to speak. So please, Kono-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much, and I apologize. I'm not able to come in person because of the COVID, but I'm very happy to participate this forum online. Well, I spoke in the morning for extensive time, so I'll be very limited this round. Well, Japan-US-Taiwan relationship is very important for Indo-Pacific, especially the democratic regime in the region. I think we need to continue working together to protect our common values. Well, I think the world is being divided into democratic camp and other dictatorship, not only the political, but economic as well. And I think the regime with common value need to sit down, and we need to create some kind of mechanism in Asia to protect our common values. So Japan-US Security Treaty, Japan-US Alliance is the cornerstone of peace and security in Asia. And Taiwan is now becoming a very strong economic power with its industries. So Japan, US, Taiwan, Republic of Korea, Australia, New Zealand, plus some ASEAN countries. I think we need to sit down together and create a new regional mechanism. TPP is one for economy, and also looking at COVID-19 and monkeypox lately, I think we need another regional mechanism for global health. So there are a lot of functional mechanism which is also needed for Indo-Pacific. And I think three of us need to sit down and continue to work together for the future of the Indo-Pacific. So I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your very important message that we have to sit down and talk about it, and how to establish a real mechanism or mechanisms to further to strengthen our security link on many, many grounds. Let me add that just a few words, a line of Mr. Kono-san's very impressive career in Japan. He was a Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he was also a Minister of Defense. Now he's a representative of House, representative in Japan. So the second speaker is Suzuki-san. Let me add he was, as you know, when a political statement, when he was young, if he was the leader of the youth section or the young leader section of LDP, and usually will come up very quickly and very impressively in the political career. Now, Mr. Suzuki-san is exactly that. And he was a director of a Treasury and the Finance Division, LDP, and state member of Foreign Affairs, and also head, as I mentioned, Youth Division, LDP. So, Mr. Suzuki, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, good morning. My name is SUZUKI Keisuke. I'm as introduced by Chair. I'm a fifth-term elected member of Parliament in Japan. And I'm very happy to come back to this Taipei City. Actually, I had visited this town quite often, like from 2014 to 2018, I came to this town like 10 times. But since then, because I was promoted to the State Minister of Finance and State Minister of Foreign Affairs in Japan, and then COVID came, so that I've not come to this town since the summer of 2018. So I'm very happy to go back to this city. Well, and as Kono-san expressed, first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to all the Taiwan's people and including President Tsai, the condolence for the past Prime Minister Abe. As we've seen, many of the public, normal citizens came to our embassy here to make a condolence. I think the tie between these two, Taiwan and Japan, is quite close and quite intimate. And the reason why is because Taiwan is the island of freedom and democracy, and under the rule of law, we share many, many values. And the point is that, please remember the New Year's Day of this year. I think at the time, it was before the Russian invasion to Ukraine. I remember that most of the international experts or the international leaders, their focus was on Taiwan and Taiwan Strait as a potential risky place for the war type of the situation. And I do think that the situation had not changed since then. Still, Taiwan Strait and Taiwan is a kind of the potential place for the hot war. Under such kind of the understanding, our party, Liberal Democratic Party, the ruling party of Japan, we established a Taiwan project team since last year. And I'm in the deputy position of the project team, and we basically focus on three topics to discuss. The one is how to secure Taiwan, and the second is what kind of the legal frame can Japan have with Taiwan? Like US do have the Taiwan Relations Act or Taiwan Travelers Act. What kind of the legal frame can Japan have with Taiwan? That's the second point. And third point is how to make Taiwan participate to the framework like CPTPP or the IPEF or such kind of the international framework. And those three are the main point that we have discussed. And I would like to introduce about the first point. We are discussing how to secure Taiwan, and we now make several scenarios. The one scenario is the full-spec invasion by PLC to Taiwan main island. And the second scenario could be the limited invasion to the small islands in Taiwan Strait. And the third scenario could be the invasion to the small islands in South China Sea. And fourth scenario could be a kind of the containment of Taiwan Island to shut down all those imports and exports to this island. And of course, the possibility, it really depends on what kind of the motivation would Chinese leader to have to invade Taiwan. Suppose their intention is to maximize their presence in this region, and in the sake of that, to minimize the influence of the US in this region. Their target should be the invasion, full-spec invasion on main island of Taiwan. But suppose their intention is really driven by their domestic political situation. Those kind of limit invasion could be possible. So we need to carefully analyze what would make those Chinese leaders drive to the possible invasion for Taiwan. And I think that all the specialists on this floor do have many opinions on it. So I'd like to discuss about it in the future. And I would like to stop my brief introduction here. But let me say that the Taiwan's emergency is a Japanese emergency. And Japan's territory is so close to Taiwan. Our western island, Yonaguni, is like 100 kilometers from Taiwan's east shore, seashore. So once Taiwan is involved to a kind of the war type of situation, Japan inevitably have to face the kind of the very risky situation also. So we, Japan, have the very strong commitment to secure Taiwan in cooperation with United States and other international partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzuki-san. And please accept our sincere condolences to the passing of late Prime Minister Abe. When the Prime Minister Abe said, what matters Taiwan matters US, matters Japan. And it's exactly what we think. This is the true reality. And also you mentioned about the Japanese version of a Taiwan Relation Act. That's echo what Mr. Kono-san said, that we need some kind of a regional, some kind of mechanism, and that Japan can do that too. So now the next, we will have two senators and one congressman. First is Mr. Roger Wicker. Roger Wicker is a senator from Mississippi. Okay, I made a mistake. I said Missouri. Sorry, that was a big mistake. Missouri. It's Mississippi. And he prepared a 5 minutes pre-recorded speech. So Senator, he's pre-recorded, so you know we're going to hear it. So he doesn't know I made mistakes. Senator Wicker from Mississippi.
Hello, I'm U.S. Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi. It is an honor to address the esteemed guest of this year's Ketagalan Forum. I trust you will find the panel discussions enlightening and constructive as we continue to work to build a safer, freer, and more prosperous Indo-Pacific region. The work we have ahead is substantial, and challenges loom large. These are the most dangerous times we have seen in a generation. China has continued its massive military buildup. Last year, we were all surprised by their successful test of a hypersonic ballistic missile. More recently, China launched its third aircraft carrier as part of its effort to dominate the South Pacific. Meanwhile, Chinese fighter jets continue to harass Taiwanese airspace. As the CCP approaches this year's Party Congress, Xi Jinping is brutally consolidating his rule. The Chinese state is increasingly asserting a totalitarian vision as it stifles democracy in Hong Kong and continues carrying out genocide against the Uyghurs. Beijing has invested significantly in military technology and conducted an international bullying campaign off its shores. Most dangerously, this vision is putting Taiwan, a free and democratic nation, in the crosshairs. It seems that Xi views Taiwan's very existence as a threat to his dictatorship. Taiwan is a living, breathing democracy, and proof that such a democracy can take root and thrive in a Chinese Confucian culture. Taiwan's economic and technological engine is the envy of the CCP. And when dictators make bold threats, we should pay attention to them. When Xi tells the world time and time again that he wants to reunify Taiwan with the mainland by force if necessary, we have no alternative but to take that seriously and to begin the hard work of deterrence. As a member of the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee, I am working to ensure our own national defense investments match President Biden's rhetoric when it comes to defending our ally, Taiwan. President Biden has said on multiple occasions that we should come to the defense of Taiwan in the case of a Chinese invasion. I wholeheartedly agree. If there is any hope of deterring war with China and protecting our Taiwanese friends, we will need strategic clarity. Strong rhetoric, however, will do only so much. As former U.S. President Ronald Reagan would say, we need to pursue a policy of peace through strength. That means pursuing the most significant defense buildup both in America and across the free world that we have seen in decades. We will need a Navy fleet that can outmatch China's growing naval power in the Pacific. Taiwan will need an arsenal of missile, satellite, and cyber capabilities that they can use to their asymmetric advantage, much like our Ukraine friends have done against their Russian invaders, to great effect. We will need a major increase in funding for the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, which brings together multiple military bases and systems to help us deny China its strategic aims. And we will need state-of-the-art communications assets to make sure Taiwan is both hardened against Chinese intimidation today and fully able to broadcast their story to the world tomorrow. All these resources will undoubtedly require a boost in overall American defense spending, which Congress has made progress on in recent years. But we will also need strong military capabilities from our Pacific allies, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Australia, and others will need to think boldly and creatively about how they can rearm and boost their own military readiness. We are already making progress through security partnerships, such as the Quad, AUKUS, and other arrangements, but we need to expand our capabilities even faster and at scale. A coalition of like-minded, freedom-loving nations with superior fighting force would surely place a massive roadblock in front of Chairman Xi's ambitions. This is not about going to war. It is about pursuing realistic and effective deterrence so that war is avoided. George Washington was correct when he said, "To be prepared for war is one of the most effective means of preserving peace." As you engage in critical conversations in the coming days, I would simply urge all of us to prioritize effective deterrence as we work to build a more secure future in the Indo-Pacific.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator WICKER. And he phrased very nicely to advocate for the strategic clarity is not to for war, it's to prevent the war. I think that's very important. So next is Senator HAGERTY from Tennessee, and he prepared 4 minutes pre-recorded speech.
Friends and colleagues from Japan and Taiwan, it's an honor and a privilege to speak to you today at the Katagalan Forum. I'm also delighted to be joined by my fellow colleague, Senator Roger Wicker. I'd like to start by acknowledging the tragic passing of a true statesman, a tireless champion of democratic values, and the most consequential prime minister in modern Japanese history, my friend Shinzo Abe. As the visionary behind the free and open Indo-Pacific and the architect of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, former Prime Minister Abe championed freedom, security, and prosperity amid the rising tide of authoritarianism in the world. Prime Minister Abe early on recognized the fundamental challenges to the regional order posed by the aggression of Communist China. Under Prime Minister Abe's leadership, Japan had the foresight to develop a new framework to rally the democratic nations in one of the most strategic regions of the world. That vision is what we call today the free and open Indo-Pacific, a vision of freedom that we strive for in the face of increasing regional challenges from Communist China and from North Korea. The United States and Taiwan lost one of its greatest allies with the assassination of Prime Minister Abe. But his leadership laid a lasting foundation for us to partner for decades to come in promoting freedom, prosperity, and security around the world as we oppose authoritarianism and tyranny at every turn. It's incumbent on all of us to carry that torch and to stand shoulder to shoulder in addressing common security concerns in the Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Abe relentlessly pursued the denuclearization of North Korea by standing alongside the United States in the global maximum pressure campaign to cut off revenue to North Korea's unlawful nuclear weapons program. This work will endure. As Senator, I'll continue to honor Prime Minister Abe's vision as I prioritize the objective of complete, verified, irreversible denuclearization of North Korea. And I'll continue my work to rally Congress and the international community to implement maximum pressure against North Korea. I most recently saw Prime Minister Abe in April, when I led the first congressional delegation to visit Japan since the coronavirus pandemic began. While in Japan, Senators Cardin and Cornyn and I also met with Prime Minister Kishida and his cabinet members and other parliamentarians. As a result of these highly insightful meetings, we saw several opportunities to advance Indo-Pacific security interests. First, the United States should warmly welcome Japan's proactive leadership in response to international crises as we look for new ways to enhance our interoperability and our effectiveness in the region. Second, the United States must look for new ways to work with Japan as Japan significantly bolsters its defensive capabilities. Japan undertook a significant increase in its defense budget. We should work together to optimize our joint capabilities, leverage the best of our technologies, and make certain that we meet the growing challenges in the region. Third, the United States must elevate the issue of energy security with members of the Quad. Alignment among the United States, Australia, India, and Japan will ensure that the Indo-Pacific region, including Taiwan, have access to reliable energy. Energy security and national security are undeniably aligned. Fourth, Quad members must ensure their technology sectors continue to partner and generate trusted sources for 5G, artificial intelligence, and other strategic technologies. Fifth, the United States must further advance its economic leadership in the Indo-Pacific. I see significant potential in working with Japan and Taiwan on digital trade matters. When I served as U.S. Ambassador to Japan, we negotiated a high-standard digital trade agreement that can stand as a model to partner with other like-minded nations in the region. It's fitting today to honor Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his work to strengthen the alliance between the United States and Japan and the Indo-Pacific region at this security dialogue. Guided by Prime Minister Abe's spirit and vision, the United States, Japan, and Taiwan will forge ahead in the important work of advancing freedom, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. Thank you, and may God bless.
Thank you very much, Senator Hagerty. And he mentioned 5 concrete fronts that Japan, Taiwan, U.S. should work shoulder by shoulder to safeguard and to promote the Indo-Pacific security and freedom and prosperity. It's all the very important wise words. Now, next is Congressman Andy BARR from Kentucky, and he prepared also a pre-recorded speech.
Hello, this is U.S. Congressman Andy BARR. It's an honor to address you all at the 2022 Katagalan Forum. First, I'd like to thank the Prospect Foundation for inviting me to the forum. As a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, the safety and stability of the Indo-Pacific region, especially Taiwan, is a top priority. One of the greatest threats to the region is the emerging alliance between the Chinese Communist Party and the Russian Kremlin. In early February, before Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin declared a joint statement that China and Russia's alliance has no limits. Since then, China has remained silent on Russia's war crimes in Ukraine and even abstained from a United Nations resolution condemning the invasion. Instead, the CCP rewarded Russia's war crimes by striking a massive deal to import natural gas from a Russian gas company called Gazprom. It's time for the United States to fully expose the CCP and Russia's unholy alliance for the world. That's why I introduced the Assessing Xi's Interference and Subversion or Axis Act, requiring the U.S. State Department to submit ongoing reports to Congress on the CCP's support for Russia before and since the invasion of Ukraine. This week, my legislation passed the U.S. House of Representatives with broad bipartisan support. I'll keep working to push this bill across the finish line and enact it into law. Additionally, with autocrats around the world challenging the rules-based international order, it's critical for democracies to unite and support each other. President Ronald Reagan once said, "We know only too well that war comes not when the forces of freedom are strong, but when they are weak. It is then that tyrants are tempted." President Reagan was right, and this is why I strongly support the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. This is the effective way to deter the Chinese aggression. Furthermore, I encourage Japan and other countries around the world to stand with Taiwan and work together to counter Chinese economic coercion and military aggression. In my role on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I'm committed to strengthening our special partnership, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in today's event. God bless Taiwan. God bless the people of Taiwan, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you for Congressman Barr's blessing on Taiwan. And indeed, when the Ukraine experiences, sad experience, really make us Taiwan, all the people in Taiwan and the regional stakeholders to watch what might happen for Taiwan, and the potentiality and also the danger. And also he mentioned about the democracies should work together at this critical moment. And this is the critical moment where we can see the test between the war, the battle between democracies and dictatorships. So very important, and the security can only be guaranteed when democracy prevails. Okay, now let's turn to the local parliamentarian. First, let me invite Legislator Law.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Shah. Let me start by expressing my gratitude to the organizer, Prospect Foundation, for organizing this very important and timely event, and for inviting me again to participate in this important dialogue. And I think as a member and chairman of the Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committee, I feel very honored to engage in dialogues with my colleagues from Japan and the US, especially a lot of things have happened in the past few years in the region. And before we talk about the rise of China and the challenges and threats we are facing as a result of the rise of China, I think it's very important for us to understand the very nature of our relationship with China. That's very important, because it's not just a competition between two powers. It's a competition or even a war between autocracy and democracy. And that's the very nature of our relationship with China. So the rise of China not only poses a threat to our power status, but more importantly, the rise of China also poses a challenge to our way of lives. And that is very important. And I think a lot of things I'm going to make, a lot of arguments that I'm going to make today are all well-known or even agreed to by this well-informed audience. But still, I think it's very important for us, for me to mention a couple of things that deserve more attention. That is, in addition to the traditional military threat that China poses to us, I think political threat is also very important. In other words, China's influence operations, China's political challenges to our democracies is one of the areas that deserve a lot of attention, because that's the things that are happening every day. These kind of threats and challenges are taking place every day. Taiwan is standing at the forefront of two opposing camps, the democratic camp and authoritarian one. The threats and challenges that Taiwan encountered may take place in other countries in the future. As a matter of fact, some are already happening in Western democracies. And these are things that Taiwan can share with our like-minded countries. But more importantly, we can also learn from other democracies when it comes to how to cope with these kind of political challenges posed by China. So my argument is very clear and simple. In the face of a rising China, Taiwan and other democracies are facing a whole range of similar and common challenges. For instance, as democracies, our free and open societies offer some vulnerabilities for Beijing to implement its influence operations. For another example, our dependence on China as trading and investment partners and as a major source of tourists has given China political leverage in our relations with China. For sure, Taiwan and other democracies have many experiences and lessons that we can share with and learn from each other. But more importantly, to cope with such challenges posed by this more powerful and more menacing China, democracies must work together and take concerted actions. As I said, the challenges we are facing from the rest of China are multifaceted. So what should be our strategy to counter China's threat? Here, let me share with you my own thoughts about how to cope with China, especially China's influence operations. To me, our counter strategy should include 4 principles: realization, diversification, legislation, and cooperation. Let me elaborate as follows. First, realization. We had to come to the realization that China is a threat, and a threat that is already taking place. In addition, we must understand that in the past, it was a misconception that engaging with China could change China. From China's experiences and Xi Jinping's example, we understand that we cannot change China. China has not only become less authoritarian, less democratic, China has become more dictatorial and authoritarian. So we have to find an alternative approach in dealing with China. Engagement with China is okay, but I think don't expect that we can change China by engaging China. So that's a harsh reality. Second principle, I would argue, is very important, is that diversification. I think the reason why China can influence us is because our dependency on China. Economic dependence, trade dependence, or even political dependence on China. The result of economic and trade dependence will increase our sensitivity and vulnerability to China. Simply put, economic dependence on China increases our vulnerability to China's influence operations. The way to reduce our dependence on China is to diversify our investment and trade markets. So obviously, the cooperation among democracies in our trading relationship, in our investment relationship is very important and is very critical to our security cooperation. And that's the reason why CPTPP is not just an economic architect. It's a very important security arrangement. My third suggestion is, legislation. As a member of a parliament, I think it's very difficult always to balance security and democracy. As I said, democracies are now very vulnerable to autocracy. They can take advantage of our openness and transparency to influence the public opinions in Taiwan, to even influence the electoral politics in Taiwan. So how can we balance the two? I mean, democracy and security. I think legislation is very important. In some cases, we have to pass laws to restrict some of China's influence operations in democracies. We cannot give the executive branch the power to do it. We had to do it through democratic legislation process. For instance, in Taiwan, all the politicians, when they receive donations from the general public, during the campaign, our control Yuan will publish who donates how much to whom, and everybody will get the access to the information. But the thing is, that kind of transparency is good for democracy. But the thing is, China can also use that kind of information to spot on some of the people who are close to the DPP or whoever they want to scrutinize. So the thing is, we cannot increase our opaqueness. But the thing is, how can we balance security, national security, and democracy? I think the best way and the safer way is through legislation in a democratic way. And that's our job as a member of parliament. But again, Taiwan, after we have come a long way from authoritarian to democratic society. So it becomes very sensitive when we talk about censorship, when we talk about how to monitor that kind of NGO activities. But the thing is, we have to learn from other democracies. Whether, for instance, Australia. Australia has passed some laws to monitor some of the political connections, especially fundings from China to their local politicians. So we can learn from other democracies, and we can also share with our experiences with other democracies. But again, as a member of parliaments, we should work together and try to come up with a better legislation. Finally, cooperation. I think we have to admit that any democratic society that wants to fight China's influence cannot do it alone. We have to work together. All like-minded countries should cooperate to face such common threats. And we have many areas for possible cooperations, such as analysis of China's influence operations, the sharing of information and intelligence, the countermeasures of various countries, and of course, the exchange of opinions on the content of legislation and so on. But again, I have to emphasize, without peacetime cooperation, it would be almost impossible to have wartime cooperation. Because what China is doing now in peacetime, they can do it more effectively in the wartime. For instance, shaping the public discourse during the wartime, shaping the public opinions in Taiwan during the wartime. So we have to work together during the peacetime. So when we are in the face of a crisis or even a war, we can work and cooperate more effectively during the wartime. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Legislator Law from New Taipei City. Well, I think that I agree with you that we may not be able to change China to become good, but we have to make all the efforts to stop China from being worse. I think that's very important, and that they need a regional check and balance, and in a way, we might need to take all kind of effort to do that. And also, when we talk about security, actually, I think we have a prerequisite, that's peace. Peace and security is always can come together, rather than not just security. Okay, now next one, we will call on Legislator He from Taipei City. Okay, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaw, and also our chairman, Chen Tangshan, of our Prospect Foundation. And I want to say hello to friends from Japan, Australia, the United States, and Canada. My name is Mark Ho. I'm the legislator from Taipei. Even though I was born in the US, but I'm totally 100% Taiwanese. And today is such an honor for me to be here, having such a meaningful dialogue, and then learning from your perspective, and then our value and our actions to protect peace and prosperity. And as recently we've seen, and then we were watching from the Ukraine, which is so bloody, which is so bitter. as a huge, humongous, traumatized lesson for all of us to see, to learn. And then I do convinced that our friends from Europe really needs our support in every single way. And then they are suffering from energy supply and then severe inflations. And then also the whole war actually devastated the world's economic. So as military, if there is a military breaks out over the Taiwan Strait, I do see it will be also a huge devastation to the global economy. Therefore, we are deeply convinced that peaceful, free, and prosperous Indo-Pacific is a global common interest. So we seek to strengthen our military capacity, not only for showing our determinations to defend democracy, freedom, and diversity ways of living in Taiwan, but the whole Indo-Pacific. The truth is, none of us can face the challenge alone. As the former Prime Minister Abe said, when there's an emergency in Taiwan, it is a Japanese emergency. Therefore, an emergency for Japan-US alliances. To face the challenge, it is crucial, important that we cooperate close together. So in order to reach this objective, I believe that by offering Taiwan an increasing meaningful cooperation with multilateral security organizations such as Quad, NATO, could provide an actual assistance to all the members to reach the goals. And then I have three facts to share with everybody here. First, Taiwanese people has better understanding about PLA and CCP's development. Since we share the same language and similar culture with China, so we do know China better. And second of all, with thousands of radars watching mainland China 24/7, we are able to consistently collect activity information from PLA, and which serve as precious military assets for all countries in the region. And the third, for decades, the CCP's coercions, Taiwan has lack of channel to challenge military information, exchange military information, intelligence, and experiences with our allies. So I'm here to propose, in the future, Japan, the US, and all the democracy countries, we should exchange more infos and more intels. And then lastly, as so much I said, I still have a message to China. I'm deeply convinced that communication is equally important as deterrence. So to maintain peace, it's important for all the democracy countries as well as for China. I do see in the future, if China still wants to keep their GDP or their stabilities, war is not an option. In Taiwan, in Japan, and Australia, and the US, we are here to guard the peace. And lastly, I'm truly appreciate this opportunity for me to join this panel. May all of us work closer even more to build a peaceful, free, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Hall. I think it's very true that the Taiwanese people, 23 million, need to be more alert about the potential threat facing in the face of China's aggression. There's no doubt about it. If there is any illusion that China is a peace-loving country, that is a fallacy. Okay, that's very important. Maybe you can do more in the legislative year and to push more military budget and more advanced weapon, and also the military institutionalization in the restructuring. Okay, since time is precious, now we have actually, let's pursue the Q&A. Actually, we received a question ahead of time. This is a question addressed to the two friends from Japan. This question is addressed to the two House representatives of Japan. We now see several countries viewing their own one China policy. As members of the House, would you be willing to assist the Cabinet and urge the executive branch to review your administration's one China policy? For instance, relaxing existing restrictions in Taiwan-Japan relations due to the constraints made under the 1972 arrangement formula and pushing forward substantive exchanges in the security realm between relevant departments of our two countries. If the answer is positive, what are the specific actions that Japanese and Taiwanese executive branches can undertake? So, Suzuki-san or Kono-san, who would respond first? Suzuki-san? Okay, please. And then Kono-san, would you be ready to answer after the Suzuki-san?
Yes, please. About the one China policy, to revise that kind of the policies in Japan or the United States or the other countries should be a bit, how to say, recomplicated, I think. At the same time, what we need to focus on should be how do we have the more pragmatic and substantial approach in many areas, I think. So, as I mentioned, the reason why we need those kind of legal framework like the Relations Act is to make the more pragmatic and the realistic approach. So I think that is how the view of our government and from our ruling party.
So let's move realistically. Where it has to move first. Otherwise, there is no realism. Okay, maybe just two maybe have some comment. What would you like to urge more? Kono-san is already offline. So I think if the two local representative legislators do not have anything to say for now, let's open for the floor. We still have 5 minutes. This is a rare time for any big conference like this, have a Q&A, real floor to the panelists. Anyone? Anyone? Silence? That means everybody's happy and happy with the session. Okay, now let's one over one hand, please. Make it short so we can hear the responses clearly.
Thank you for the opportunity to pose a question to this distinguished panel. My name is Marcin Jerzewski and I am the head of Taiwan office of the European Values Center for Security Policy. I am interested in your takes on institutionalization of parliamentary exchanges. So, as we know, parliamentary diplomacy and this kind of exchange is susceptible to electoral volatility. So how can we ensure that parliamentary frameworks that embrace Taiwan can be sustainable despite electoral competition and transfers of powers in the respective countries that participate in those frameworks? Thank you.
Who do you address to?
It's an open question. So
okay, open question and open to the three of you. Would you like to make very short response? Okay.
The LOI is in recess right now, but a lot of my colleagues now are traveling to a lot of European countries to exchange their views with their colleagues in other countries. So these kind of parliamentary exchanges are very important. But in addition to making friends, more importantly, I think it's very important to talk about issues. So to have that kind of focused discussions or focused exchange of views is very important. So especially we are all democracies. So when we talk about how to pass the legislation in dealing with that kind of challenges we are facing, I think it will be very more provocative and interesting to engage in that kind of dialogues. So I agree with you that it's very important to have more institutionalized dialogues, but the issue areas that we can engage dialogues are more important than the format of a dialogue. Thank you.
That was a really good question. You know what? We probably won't be on this position forever. But whatever we do, we set, or those boundings and friendship will stay forever. So since I was a city councilor, I traveled through different places, and then a lot of younger generations of staff. Time to time, we chat, we talk, and then we communicate, and then we talk about values, we talk about how to do more interactions in terms of economic, in terms of what's going on, for example, global warming, and for example, environmental issues. Like, we learn from each other, and then we make our values into actions. And I do see that's important, regardless of formal or informal. And then back to One China policy questions. What kind of China are we talking about? What kind of policy we are sticking for? What if today the China is constantly doing coercions or giving our neighbors threats, or they are really killing human beings, like one by one, or they are really putting in each individuals, like they don't listen, into concentration camp? Is that the China we still wanna to have? Or we can do something to change it? So each time when I hear One China policy, my question is, what kind of China it is, and what kind of China it's gonna be? So today we are here, even though I may not be super senior as our professor, Mr. Luo, but we have a hope, we have actions, and we have plans for whatever is gonna come out to us. Thank you very much.
Well, this is a rare occasion that our speaker can have a second chance to speak. And we have one question on the floor, one question prepared. So I think we should stop here. That's ready for the lunching session. Just one word. Now we have a dialogue. Usually dialogue, we sit down and talk about it. Now it's a time to act and stand up. Let's move on and to work together as suggested by the various panelists. Mechanisms, the legal framework, and also other mechanisms. We should work together. Thank you very much. Please give applause to our panelists, the 7 panelists. Thank you.
All right, thank you once again for Chairman Xiao.